Okay.
Okay.
We ready?
Jason, I would wait a few minutes. People always seem to come up until 5 or 6 after. That's a small recommendation.
Okay, giving 5 more minutes. Okay. Okay, it's 8:05 now. Anyway, let's start.
Oh, it's just getting warm. Okay. No one said they liked Bob Dylan after I'd taken the trip.
Okay, Gerhard and Chaime, who do you want to start first?
Chinese food?
Okay, I don't have food, but when
Chaime.
Yeah,
who's talking today? May I ask?
Well, but I am no. Well, the first point is thank you for organizing this conversation, but I was very complicated to me to participate in the previous ones. No, and I'm sorry for that. But I enjoyed a lot reading the book of Bernard and preparing the manuscript, and now I see the text like something that happened some years ago, and now it's again here. And the part 10 about possible world futures, to me, it's a reflection about what I am doing here. Probably it's what about the mystery of life, and for many of you, probably the word mystery is a wrong word, but I don't know. Another point is I am not really good speaking in English, and Bernard is always telling me the small details and small mistakes and big mistakes when I talk in English. No, but and when I translate this to Spanish, I think it's a funny explanation of what we understand, like future and possible world futures. If you mix both ideas and you introduce the idea of understanding, that is a more complex point. And I agree with some of the questions that Gerard sent to us before this conversation. And I would like to ask about the idea of future to Bernard, because when I am thinking in future, I am thinking in persons, because you are now in a future, but probably you are more past than future. No, Bernard? and in my particular approach to the life, we here are past, but at the same time we have future, and we are the future of some of this complicated type of explanation. And I want to ask Bernard about what do you think about future now with your health problems? When you talk about future, probably is other perspective. If you are thinking in your future, is always your future. It's not future outside my own life. No, what I don't know if I am feeling the conversation.
I'm not sure what you're saying. I mean, obviously I pay attention somewhat to what's happening to me, but the chapter is about what's happening to the planet.
Yeah, I understand, but the planet is always the planet for someone.
Yes.
No, and that's
some bodies.
Yeah, everyone. But that's my point. Maybe. Are you sure that this is for everyone, or it's always for someone?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to say it's there for no one. Maybe it is. I don't know. Sorry, Chaime, I'm not sure what you're getting at. I mean, there are people who are pitifully ignorant. I mean, there'll be slave labor all over the place, as there was 200 years ago in the West, where the people have no opportunity to learn about what is happening on their planet or in their world. They're just oppressed. and they carry on being oppressed, and they're completely the victims of everything that the rich people are doing. So it's I suppose one of the things I usually start with is education. We cannot hope to work together in some kind of constructive way for the world. So if there isn't education for all at some level, otherwise, but we know how awful everything is in terms of exploitation and lack of opportunity and so on, and people dying everywhere. It's words fail me in terms of expressing how horrified I am at the state of the world. I mean, it may be that some of us, I say in the chapter, it may be that some remnant lives on beyond the next century, but I doubt it'll be a very big one. And a lot of people are dying now. I mean, for various reasons. And we just lost another boat full of migrants in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And we've got the wars going on in Sudan and Ukraine and
Yeah. I understand that's clear, but I am not sure if I'm sure if I know to explain. But the future, as you put in, is for the world, for the planet, but it is always laid and explained from a subject that speaks and lives. How we move from that individual self to a shared and conscious self, I think that is the point of reference in your text. The idea of governance, of course, introduces a great paradox of an ego and with an we. That's the problem, because when we are talking about we or us or nosotros in Spanish, it's you need to move from your particular perspective to something bigger.
I think it was from Förster. Who said something which I've quoted somewhere, possibly in the book, I don't know, which is that in English we have two words, conscious, which means awake, and talking with yourself or with someone else, and conscience, which means you have some sense of moral responsibility or something, some other phrase. And Heinz says it's there's something in us that knows that we are socially dependent, that we are, as selves, we are social products. There's no human self who ever lived alone completely. Everyone was socialized in some way in their family or their community to become a person. Otherwise, you're not. You're a feral being of some sort. I mean, human looking perhaps, but not human behaving or human thinking or having a human conscience. So I think as I suggest that there's something, if we allow it to happen, we can sense inside ourselves our brothership, sistership with those around us. And of course, there are many who don't do that. That whatever sensitivities they have to other people have been, well trampled down either by themselves or other people. So they go out there and rob, murder, blah 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 blah, wage wars. I mean, they are not, they're not fit to be called human in a way. But so I don't think I think that certainly if you're brought up in a family, you have connections with other human beings, and a little bit of reflection will tell you how important those connections are. If not those connections, some connections are. I mean, so I don't see it a mystery that human beings gather together, and support each other. I think this is just what we are, what we do, some of the time, if not most of the time.
And in this chapter, in this part 10, I enjoy a lot with your laws of observation and action, and I try to spread this I am not sure if it's Godspell. You say it's proper to say Godspell in this. The idea of the good. The five
gospel.
Yeah, well, but this is in metaphorically, no? It's the idea of your five laws or principles are fantastic. I always repeat in my classes. Well, at the beginning of my classes, I always say, first we have to start with this 5 sentence. There is always a bigger picture. That's, in my opinion, is what is say. There are more perspectives, and the same about other level of detail, another perspective, but your 2 more error and unexpected. Even this morning I was teaching and I repeat these 5 sentences to my students, and one from Italy said, how you can say that is always the unexpected? What means that? And I say, this afternoon I will ask to the author what means the unexpected, because from his point of view, he's a physiotherapist, said me, unexpected in my practice is not unexpected. I try to resolve the unexpected trauma lessons of my patients. No, so from where do you find the unexpected?
Well, roughly the second law of thermodynamics. Things are always happening, and one of my favorite examples. I'm glad of the opportunity to quote it. You know, when you have some pieces of wire or something, or some lengths of something or other material, and you put them neatly next to each other. Okay. Within a few hours, they're all intertwined. There's a background vibration to our world. It's very it's not huge, it's not big, but it's enough to move things around. So when you come back tomorrow to have a look at your collection of bits of string or whatever they are, wires, you will see that they have moved. They've changed position and they're tangled up. They get mixed up. I think it's fascinating. I've been meaning to write a book about it one day. It's a joke, but I think more people should be aware of these simple truths, as it were. Why do another one which is not in my book? Why do eyes sparkle? When you look at some people's eyes, why do they seem to sparkle at you? This is a physical phenomenon from their eyes. Perhaps it is.
Yeah,
I think it's anyway. So yes, that's why there's always the unexpected. Chaime, you didn't expect that question about whatever it was I just asked you about. Eyes sparkling.
Yeah, and other. Before your 5 principles, you say being holistic lacks meaning if the theoretical ideal lacks a praxis. Right. And that's a big sentence also in your whole book. The theoretical ideal needs a praxis. Yes. And how to do this in a local and limited space for being holistic.
Here we go. This is. I found the paragraph. Remember, someone speaking. Might be more interesting. No. Yes. I mean, this is Stafford Beer, amongst others, but Stafford in particular used to say cybernetics is about being holistic. Now, I saw him do that in a video of a lecture, and it stuck with me. I think, what does he mean? What's that? What does it mean? What are the implications? And then you combine that with the standard Luhmann Habermas kind of quarreling about who the fact that you cannot stand outside the social system and look at it. You're always part of it. Okay, so So you can't be holistic because you can't get outside it to look at it. And Pascal say the same, that life is ineluctable, unlockable. You cannot unlock life and get outside and look at it from the outside. So what I say here is you cannot step outside and observe the whole, but you can intend to observe the whole. Right? You wish to. You're trying to all the time. You're trying to understand the whole. Every day there's more of the whole to look at. You change your mind about things, but all these things going on. And what I said in terms of, I go on then to say, in terms of cooperation and working with other people, it's not that you both have the same perspective. It's not that you have the same views about the politics or the climate and stuff like that. It's that you both intend to be holistic. That's what we cyberneticians should, or systems thinkers, if you like, I don't mind, should be paying attention to. And we have it establishes a sense of goodwill and a sense of purpose, that we wish to understand everything. And I really literally mean everything you can think of, or your friend can think of.
Well, and when I try to understand your approach, and I try to introduce some provocative questions, and I probably, what do you think about the idea of Agustín de Hipona, San Agustín? I don't know how you say in English. Agustín?
St. Augustine, sorry. St. Augustine.
Yeah, he said, veritas. I don't. Well, the idea is being holistic requires introspection.
Well,
what do you think?
Not sure. Well,
the truth is in within, or not?
What do you mean by introspection? I mean, we have.
It's impossible to be holistic if you are not inside your own conscience.
Well, it's impossible to be conscious, if you like, or part of your conscience if you're not inside it. So to be introspective is just the same as to be reflective, or to be aware of oneself, albeit as a human, in some form of language. You're languaging, whatever.
Yeah.
As a bird, you're probably singing. But you are aware of yourself. So there's no mystery over that. We are self-conscious creatures, even without much development of personality or self or something in some social aspect, or even as a very small child. You can, children get upset, they get embarrassed, they feel things. And after a little while, by the age of 2 maybe, they begin to be very aware of themselves, or can be in some circumstances.
So, but in the next part of these paragraphs of this chapter, the next is the first order problems, the next is second order problems, and after you talk about looking for solutions. But
yes.
Your concluding comments are, from my point of view, really good. The 4 last sentence, and these are linked with your principles about the idea is everything is connected to everything else, and that's they say I discover my own perspective learning from your perspective, and maybe it's a challenge to introduce the idea of there is always another perspective. That's the main point. And I try to provoke you. What happened when you are thinking about Islamic countries and you send me your email about Islamic? There is something right in the other side or not?
So there is something,
and we share many emails about Islamic countries, Islam,
Yes, some, yes.
jihad, and I ask, what do you think about this perspective? Because always there is something in the other side. And what happened with you have two opposite perspectives that one said this is not possible. And what we do with this last part of the global solutions, if we don't understand the other side. Well, I am not sure if my English is correct, but what happens when?
Well, so do you want me to speak specifically about Islam?
Yeah, Islam or other, for instance, in Spain, now we have new elections, and this, what you say in English, ultraderecha, how you say, far right, alt-right?
Far right, yes, we have some of those.
And now the problem is there is a political party, very right stream, and there are other in the other side, and they have two different perspectives, political perspectives, and they are in a conflict. If we go to the global sphere, if you put, for instance, Iran, jihad, all these countries, what we do with these people traveling the same planet?
Well, this is coming out now. It's not something I've articulated particularly clearly before. What I'm seeing is instability, possibly increased instability amongst the populace. You have people who are reacting. Many in England, we have one particular party which is becoming quite successful on the right. I don't think it's won anything yet. Maybe it's won one council seat in one town. It's called Britain First. They've been mounting an increasingly coherent and effective campaign, and they appeal to patriotism. They appeal to the fear of the stranger and all that sort of stuff. And they appeal to what are apparently, if you see their videos and go to their meetings, which I haven't done, you see what are mostly ordinary British people, working class people, not all, I hate these words, white and black, not all English natives, whatever that means, but they are concerned about the future of this country, their country, because they identify as British, and the fact that all across Europe, not just in Britain, there is we've got an increase in the number of strangers, aliens, whatever. The proportion of, I don't like the labels at all, but insofar as there are newcomers and who are from other cultures coming in, there are more coming in, but also all across Europe, many of these other cultures are breeding more, they're having more children. So the population is going up, and the native, what you want to call them, populations are going down. So it doesn't take a genius of statistics and mathematics to forecast that in 40, 50 years, things will be at another extreme. And who knows what will be happening then when as a particular minority, let's say a minority like Islam, like the Muslims, who cling to they cling to each other because that's what they're told to do. They have an oppressive lifestyle where they have to be part of the culture. And as I show in the next chapter, there's very little opportunity, there's very little effort to make any kind of connection to the native British culture. They just want to hide themselves. They want to protect themselves from the influence of outside cultures. That's what they want to do. Islam it's one of those things like Scientology or Jehovah's Witnesses, where once you're in it, you're in it, and you can't easily get out. Except the penalties for trying to get out of Islam are a bit steeper. And yes, I know there are many mild and Muslims, more liberal Muslims. There's 30 million of a particular. I can't remember the name. Who's heard of the Aga Khan? Heard of the Aga Khan? Well, he's a leader of 30 million Muslims, and his grandfather used to be a rich playboy in the West with racehorses. He was famous for his racehorses. That's the Aga Khan, and he's the tribal chief, if you like, or the religious chief of 30 million. But they are on the liberal side. He was quite a liberal chap, where some of the other groups, as we know, aren't. So it doesn't mean just to find a few or even a few million relatively liberal Muslims, or a group of relatively liberal Muslims, doesn't really say a lot, because we've still got a lot more out there. We've still got Saudi Arabia and the other Arabs, and we've got Iran, and we've got all that's happening in Africa, which I can't count. So what, and I sort of argue this in various places, is what we need is people need to be educated. They need to have the freedom to think and not be locked away or executed for having false thoughts. I mean, it's still the case in most parts of the Islamic world that you are likely to be imprisoned or even killed because you become an apostate. You decide to leave Islam. You've got your family will come and kill you. I mean, Muslim fathers are continually frequently killing their daughters because they've gone with the wrong man. Okay.
Yeah. To finish, for my part, to think about the future, I have some last questions. What do we do when the other perspective is radically opposed to our personal or group perspective? What do we do when two perspectives lead to conflict? Because it's useful to say there are more perspectives, okay, but sometimes perspectives are not peaceful, no? And how do we manage two perspectives that deny each other? And how do we build possible future wars if one perspective decides that there is only one perspective? Okay,
that's not what's being called for, Chaime. Paul and I had a mentor. Our professor was Gordon Pask, and Gordon Pask he invented, he spelled out. It's not he's working totally original, but it's the most brilliant description or theory of conversational processes as to when you should disagree or not disagree, or when you should agree to disagree. But all this is predicated on being civilized, in the sense that you're not going to take to arms to get your way. But if the world's full of people who want to, kill you, like the Russians do to the Ukrainians, or all those other things that are happening around the world, then I think you're quite at liberty to defend yourself, and if necessarily, preemptively defend yourself, which means go on the attack. I mean, that's a different game. I mean, that's not what I worked for how many years? At least 8 years at the Defence Defence Academy in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
One of my jobs was to turn officer training materials, including British military doctrine and all the details of how the army is organised and all the different roles and all those acronyms. I was in charge of a project to turn those materials into distance learning. Initially as a book pack, which is on my shelf. If you ever visit me, I'll show it to you. It's rather lovely in a way, but especially British military doctrine. And then later as CDs that the officers took into the front line with them. Now, of course, one of the very common things that happened was that the senior officers who were supervising the younger officers who were supposedly being educated or trained in this distance learning way would allow them to take open book exams. In other words, they would just they just have turned blind eye while the young officers just sort of copied their answers onto the exam form. But that's because the senior officers wanted their men available for duty. They didn't want sitting around in classrooms. But it was a good. I mean, it wasn't a failure. It wasn't a total failure at all. But it was a great project, and I'm sure a lot was learned. But the rumours went around that nobody was seriously studying, but they had to study certain things because they were vital for their well-being and the well-being of their nation. Yeah, but. And while you're here, I'll tell you that in British military doctrine, I used to know all the. It's got a kind of hierarchical structure, a tree of concepts. It could have been designed by me and Pas. Actually, they have a concept centre down at the military college, separate from where I was, which continually reviews British Army operations and revises them and tries them out as necessary. It's a cyclic operation, going like that all the time, trying out new things and then finally putting them into official doctrine. But the thing that amazed me is that it quite clearly says in British military doctrine that your soldiers deserve to have a good moral case if you want them to go to war. If there isn't one, then they're not obliged to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a shock to me because up to that, but I always thought, well, they just do as they're ordered. Maybe they do, but then maybe they're not aware. But they do have this freedom of conscience. That's British.
Well, yeah. My last question or provocation: your 4 last ideas. Are the laws of ecology laws of desires?
Well, allow me to tell you the story of this because it's not me. It's
your 4 last points are everything is connected to everything.
It's from
the commoner.
It's from an American ecologist. Barry Commoner, yeah. I saw him give it was one of his perks of working for Pas in 1972. Pas knew all sorts of people on the scientific side, anything to do with systems and cybernetics and lots more. And he knew, I didn't know, but he knew that the Barry Commoner was coming to England and was going to give a lecture at the what is it called? The CA. Paul, where was the colloquy exhibited?
Originally at the ICA, the Institute for Contemporary Arts, 68.
There's this, I don't know if it's still there in London, but there's something called the Institute for Contemporary Arts and Barry Commoner gave a lecture there, and it must have had 100 people in it. It was a very large lecture theatre, and he talked for an hour or so, but he was talking about dangers to the planet, which people are becoming aware of because of pollution and things like that. But he came out with these 4 laws, which are in my book, and I remember them, and they've stayed with me ever since. And I see them as well. You could argue that there might be some sort of sterile strip between 2 ecosystems, such that they're not connected. But in principle, the biosphere is the collection of all possible ecologies that might be distinguished by an observer. The ecology doesn't sit there. It's the observer goes up and has a look at it and decides and it puts a boundary around it where he thinks it's relevant and so on. But in principle, everything's connected to everything else, and you can sort of look at them from all different directions and so on. So everything's connected to everything else. Makes sense to me. And what's the next one? I told you I have a migraine. What's the next one, Chaime?
Well, no, that's the point. It's the next one is everything must go somewhere. Nature comes.
And that I remember this. I remember when he came out with this one, I thought it was so neat. What a neat way to express the idea that everything must go somewhere. You can't just throw away your nuclear waste. But he's pointing out also that nature is I was going to say conservative, but it doesn't waste. Nothing gets wasted in nature. Everything gets recycled one way or another. Somewhere. Absolutely. We're part of this absolutely beautiful machine.
Yeah. But the third, you say nature knows best, and where is this nature? Okay, but that's not the problem. Maybe I think.
Well, it gives a. Okay, I give there's a commentary which says humankind has fashioned technologies to improve upon nature, but the changes are proven to be detrimental to the system. And mainly, he was pointing out that in nature things get recycled. Nature doesn't produce plastic and throw it in the ocean forever, kind of thing. Whatever gets built up by nature, using that metaphor, eventually gets broken down. So it's all recycled. But in our case, we just cheerfully throw things into space, throw things in the sea, bury them in the garden. Don't know what we do, but we're complete idiots.
Yeah.
I still can't believe after all these decades that mankind as a whole has made so little progress towards solving the problems of global warming, climate change, or pollution, or speciation. Oh, I should also say that in the list of, I think there's a list of things to be worried about in here, and in this book, and I forgot to mention pandemics. It wasn't in my radar at that time.
Yeah, and anybody.
I'm
okay.
I'm only an amateur,
Yeah. So for my part, I think that's enough. I leave it in your hands, Jason. I am not sure if it's enough, or I learned a lot listening Bernard, but maybe is now the turn of Gerard or the others in the floor. Okay.
Jason's there.
I mean, Gerhard, please go ahead.
Chaime, well done. Thank you very much.
No, you are the. I prefer to listen to you than speak myself.
You should phone me up more frequently. Okay.
Gerhard?
This is my close friend. He's always busy. He said that is that point of his career where he doesn't have a moment to spare, apart from the fact that he has 5 children and a beautiful wife. I will come to Spain later this year.
We can organize a meeting here if you want to come. It's beautiful food, good weather, beautiful.
Well, I go up and down. I've been starting to get a little bit better with the weather, a little bit more healthy. I can travel further without inconvenience. And then, as I said when we began today, I have a migraine that's been going on for 30 hours. It's getting a little bit better, but it's miserable.
Okay.
So I'm very happy to speak to anyone else, or you can chat among yourselves if you like.
Gerhard, it's now the turn.